there's something that's pulling in my heart. I'm working with someone whose family is, as many are right now, feeling the impacts of separation. This kind of extreme separation that we're experiencing right now with the levels of polarization. Division, dehumanizing, misunderstanding each other, othering, fighting, hurting, oppressing. And I work with a lot of people, and there's a great privilege in holding so many different stories and experiences and insights and heartbreak and tragedy and love and awakening. I don't share these stories. They move through, they're not held on to, but there's some piece of this that wants to be shared and is, well, we'll let the words speak for themselves and whatever comes out. So this man's family is very religious. The town they grew up in, it's the bread and butter of the town. Southern, rural religion. And my patient is living a totally different life, has totally divorced himself from that world since graduating high school, moving across the country. Very liberal, very progressive by the standard ways that we would talk about being progressive versus being conservative. Voting a certain way, advocating a certain way, speaking a certain way. And he just lost his job. Well, I shouldn't say that. He just got a return to work. Order, which for him and his circumstances, without going into the details, his family, his needs, his health, that is the equivalent of losing his job. And it happened in a way that felt quite traumatic and sudden and is still unresolved. And his family, as they are politically aligned, voted and stand behind the policies that led to my patient losing his job. I'm not bringing this up to talk about politics or to right or wrong anyone, because I don't know this family. I know my patient. But what stood out to me about his process around this was he tried to make connection. He tried to seek compassion, which he got. And he tried to seek remorse, which he didn't get. His family members still stand behind their choices and have their values wrapped up in what they're standing for. Now here there's an experience of extreme bucking of labels that we could ever be separated into Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative. I mean, I could keep going with those labels and get off the political spectrum, but there's so many ways that we polarize and create false binaries that were never true, that what both sides are fighting for are the same thing, the same values, from a different angle, that when it has an opposition is inherently trying to protect itself and defend against the other. This is inherent, endless separation mechanism that's in place when we are polarized and set up to be divided. Doesn't mean that I believe in passivity or not participating in democracy or not working to improve it or not giving feedback or not advocating when it's alive to, when it's important in one's bones to do something when ignorance and suffering is created. I know there's a way to do that that's not polarizing and that's not violent, either psychologically or physically. Even dehumanization on any level is violent. When a victim becomes liberated, then there can be the victim becoming the oppressor. There's this trap of separation. So it's not that I see my patient as right and a victim and his family as wrong and to blame, but I see that there is this seemingly insurmountable separation process that's pushing this family apart. And this knowing that when we see each other as the threat, when this mind body perceives threat from another who, in a moment of tenderness, we would see as co-regulating or supportive, we see as the nervous system state presupposes the thoughts, the stories, the stance that we take. We're at war. That's not actually what wants to be talked about, but it's coming into context of what he shared with me that's sticking and points to something, is what he told me about his mom, which is that he knows that she believes that this is end times. That's how they would refer to kind of apocalyptic, foretold prophecies of the Bible, of the scripture. And he sees her checking out. He told me that I feel like my mom is just waiting to meet her mom in heaven. I feel like she doesn't even see me anymore, doesn't even care about me anymore. And he was the one that actually this week had to draw a boundary for himself. He felt called to. And I'm not saying that this is right or wrong either, and it is true for him and feels healthy for him that he can't have a relationship with his family right now because he's in so much pain and feels quite lost in terms of what he's going to do next. It seems quite likely that there's so much on both sides of this apparent divide in this family that aren't being seen by the other. I can sense the aspects from my patient that he's not able to see, not ready to see. Not right now, not when he's activated and triggered and rightfully so, feeling quite unsafe. He'll get through it. He's getting through it. And it did happen in quite a violent way. Could have happened very differently if these patterns and these changes took into account that we're not separate, that there are human beings on the other end of this change movement. But that feeling into a mother experiencing herself at the end, experiencing I just want to be in a better place. It's not about her son being bad, it's not about blaming. It's about surrendering to one's story, to one's identity, and identifying with that, orienting to that, rather than the alive experience of your living son who's reaching out to you. Maybe he's pushing you away at the same time, and he's here. He's hurting. And I don't have the answer that makes this a unity moment. Because the reality is there is a division created out of an interpreted division. There are material lives that have been physically separated. There's a grief in that, and feeling how separated we become. There's a grief even on extrapolating that story to so much more mundane, smaller things. Like how separated we become on our screens, on our computers, in our jobs, in our relationships, in our perceived relationships, in our segregation from humans, not even from races, but from humans. Like we're segregated. We're segregated from life. And so the grief, the letting go, because that's really what grief is the loss and the felt loss of something valued. The letting go is both the sadness and the relief in pretending otherwise. What a relief to really see and feel and open one's eyes to what's happening. What insanity. What insanity. What insanity that has played out on this incredibly large scale where we are divided from our families. Even though that could never be the case, even though biologically we are the same. And the relief is that we can actually feel a sense of normalcy in it is insane. It is insane. It is insane. And I don't have to define myself by that insanity when I can relate to it, when I can see it, when I can feel it, when it's not consuming me, when it's not in the driver's seat, when it's not autopilot mode, raising my hand to strike my neighbor, or grabbing my bag to run and flee, when I can actually see that this insanity is playing out, this false division, it brings me home. And so the letting go into that, the sadness, coupled with the relief of letting go. This is how it is. This is what I'm seeing. wakes you up to seeing that I'm not trapped in this. This doesn't dictate how I actually relate to every single living organism that crosses and relates and connects to me. And that no, I might not be perfect. And yes, I've been conditioned by this insanity. And yes, I'm biologically wired to protect myself and survive in this insanity, which creates more and more defenses and separation. And how simple the waking up is, how simple the letting go, the grief, the relief, the dropping of all agendas to just be here and just feel. That if all of that war is just feeding into the insanity, like it's so clear how here in this moment, I'm waking up out of that. I will not feed that. Life doesn't want, the awake conscious life doesn't want to feed that. It sees through ever possibly being free or separate. The freedom is through, the freedom is in, the freedom is as everything that's arising. As my Republican neighbor, as my Democratic grandma, as my liberal, independent, unidentifiable tween nephew. Like, there's just me and everything. There's not a need to wait. I don't need to wait to be awake enough to see the humanity and to see the connection and everything, to see the insanity that would hypnotize me and the choice that I have right here, right now. I can't control the world. I can't control the insanity. The insanity doesn't belong to me. I can see it. And the seeing can shape this life.